In front of me, I have the 3 Nespresso Vertuo machines, and inside this video, we're going to talk about which machine is best. We have the Nespresso Vertuo Next, the Nespresso Vertuo Plus, and the Nespresso Vertuo Pop Plus. We're going to be going through all the features of each one of these machines and talking about which is going to be the best for you. The first noticeable difference is going to be size. We have the largest Nespresso Vertuo machine, the Nespresso Next here, and it may not be as tall as the Nespresso Vertuo Plus, but it's definitely a whole lot longer. And that's because the water reservoir for the Vertuo Plus is going to be sitting on the side of the machine and not in the back. And then of course we have the smallest of the bunch, the Nespresso Vertuo Pop Plus, and right in the middle of size we have the Nespresso Vertuo Plus. Now there's obviously going to be design differences and operating differences as well as size differences for the pods that you can brew. And we're going to be talking about all of that inside of this video. Let's go ahead and start off with talking about the features, pros, and cons of the Nespresso Next. Okay, here we have the Nespresso Vertuo Next, and soon we're going to go ahead and brew a pod of Nespresso. But first, I just want to go ahead and talk about the features of this machine and what makes it different from the other Nespresso machines. First off, we have a pretty large water basin here in the back, enough for you to brew that 18-ounce carafe that only the Nespresso Vertuo Next can do. Another difference compared to, let's say, the Vertuo Plus is going to be this little side hatch, and this is where all of your used Nespresso pods are going to go. Now, for example, in the Vertuo Plus, this is actually in the back. I kind of like it on the side. It's really easy to get to. So let's say that you have the Nespresso Vertuo Plus against the wall. Well, then you can't easily access this chamber with all the used Nespresso pods when it's time to empty it. So for this one, it's on the side, very easy to get to. And that's something that I love that they introduced in the Nespresso Vertuo Next. And of course, all the Nespresso machines are going to have this adjustable drip station, so you can move this up and down depending on the cup size that you're using for your Nespresso. Lastly, we have to talk about the top here. So it has a locking and unlocking function. So if I turn this to the right, it's going to unlock and open up the chamber. This, of course, is where you're going to put your Nespresso pod, and then you would close it and lock it when you're ready to brew your Nespresso. And you'll notice in the back that we have this little capture device here. That's going to pick up the Nespresso pod and put it into the recycling chamber. This all works smoothly, and it's honestly one of my favorite things about Nespresso machines. Now that we've talked about all the features of the Nespresso Vertuo Next, let's go ahead and brew an Nespresso pod. And we're going to be brewing this Furtado Decaffeinato. This is my favorite decaf coffee pod from Nespresso, so that's why I'm choosing this one. To brew a pod of Nespresso with the Nespresso Vertuo Next, all we're going to have to do is just pop open this little lid in the back, take our water, and we'll dump this in. And I put about 10 ounces of water in here, so you'll notice that you have plenty of extra room inside this water basin. Then what we need to do is go ahead and unlock this. That, of course, will open up the chamber. We can take our pod, place it into the chamber, take our cup, place it on top of the drip station, and now we are ready to brew with the Nespresso Vertuo Next. Now you do have to slam this quite hard and then twist it to lock it. Once you've locked it, now all we have to do is just hit this button and that will start the brew. And there we have it. We are now brewing our lovely Nespresso pod, and you'll notice that immediately we have that crema foam on top, and I'm so excited for my favorite Nespresso pod. Honestly, there's a lot to love about the Nespresso Vertuo Next, and the speed at which it brews a pod is absolutely incredible. And there we have it, our lovely brewed Nespresso pod. And look at that crema. The Nespresso Vertuo Next does a great job of making Nespresso pods just like all of the Nespresso machines. After brewing our Nespresso pod with the Nespresso Vertuo Next, you hit the unlock button and you'll notice that it will eject the pod into the recycle bin in the back. Now let's go ahead and do a taste test. That is an amazing cup of coffee. Up next, we're going to be talking about the Nespresso Vertuo Plus. The Nespresso Vertuo Plus is the most unique out of the 3 Nespresso machines. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the water reservoir is off to the side of the machine. The water reservoir is off to the side of the machine. This just allows you to save counter space, but still have a large Nespresso machine. The second difference is going to be the used pod container here in the back. This is where all of the used Nespresso pods go. And this is the only Nespresso Vertuo machine that has this in the back of the machine. Thankfully though, this is a very large capsule holder and it really does hold a lot before you have to empty it. And the third difference that's going to be completely unique to the Nespresso Vertuo Plus is going to be this mechanical opening top. You hit it once and it will open up and automatically drop the Nespresso pod to the back. And then when you put a new Nespresso pod in here to use, all you have to do is click that button and it automatically goes down. The other two Nespresso Vertuo machines have a manual top where you have to press it down and lock it into place. This is the only one that's automatic. And look-wise, it's completely different compared to the other Nespresso machines. Now let's go ahead and brew an Nespresso pod using the Nespresso Vertuo Plus. For this demonstration, we're going to be using the Furtado Decaffeinato. It's my favorite decaf pod. So all we have to do is open this up, and I love the automatic opening top. Then you take the Nespresso pod, drop it in, and we'll close it on top. Now we have to fill the water reservoir, and thankfully this is a giant water reservoir, so you really don't have to fill it that often. And lastly, we take our mug and we set it right underneath the spout. All you have to do is just hit this green lit button and it will start brewing Nespresso. And there we have it, some golden crema from the Nespresso pod. And honestly, it's smelling really amazing right now. And there we have it, our Nespresso pod is done, and this is the finished result. Honestly, the crema foam looks great on top, just like the other Nespresso machines, and I'm very impressed with the look and quality of this coffee. Now let's go ahead and have a taste test. Same great quality as the Nespresso Next. Last on our list is going to be the Nespresso Vertuo Pop Plus. Here we have the Nespresso Pop Plus. Now you can get this in a wide variety of different colors. I happen to have the red top version of the Nespresso Vertuo Pop Plus, and you'll notice some similarities to the Nespresso Next, but overall this is a completely different machine and it has its own features. The most notable is going to be the space-saving design. It is the smallest of the Nespresso Vertuo machines, which means it has a smaller water reservoir, but it saves a ton of counter space. We only have two options here for the drip station, so you can have it at that height, or you can have it at the longer height, which is going to fit most coffee mugs. Now it does feature the side compartment for holding your used Nespresso pods, which I really do appreciate because you're not going to have anything sitting on this side of the Nespresso machine, so that's going to save you even more space. So you go ahead and twist this, and then it will pop open the top of the Nespresso machine, and it looks a whole lot like the Nespresso Next, but it's a lot smaller. You would go ahead and take your Nespresso pod, put it in the chamber, and then after it's done using it, these little arms here will grab it and it'll put it in the back chamber where it would hold all the used pods. And then once you're ready to brew, you would go ahead and push this down, twist it to the lock side, and then this button would light up. You would hit that to brew the pod. Now those are all the features for the Nespresso Pop Plus. Let's go ahead and brew a pod with this machine. I'm going to be brewing my favorite decaf Nespresso pod, Furtado Decaffeinato. I highly recommend this pod. First things first, we twist the top to unlock it and it will pop open. We take our Nespresso pod, we put it in the chamber, then we close this and we twist it to lock it into place. Next, we take our water and we fill it up in the water reservoir. Now all we have to do is hit this button and it will start brewing our Nespresso pod. Now that it's done brewing, we have a nice golden crema at the top of our Nespresso, and doesn't that look beautiful? Now it's time for a taste test. Honestly, this machine does a great job of making coffee. It tastes delicious. Now let's go ahead and answer the question, which Nespresso Vertuo machine is best? If you're someone who wants to be able to brew an 18-ounce carafe of Nespresso coffee, then the Nespresso Vertuo Next is going to be your best option. And even though it's larger than the other two, it does have the capability of brewing the biggest pod sizes. So if you have enough counter space and you want to brew the biggest pods of Nespresso coffee, then I highly recommend picking up the Nespresso Next. But on the other hand, if you're someone who wants to save space and you don't have a lot of counter space to begin with, then I definitely recommend picking up the smaller Nespresso Pop Plus. This machine will brew all of the most popular pod sizes, but you're going to be saving a ton of space. And even though it doesn't have the biggest water reservoir, it's still going to make great Nespresso coffee. You may have to fill up the reservoir a little bit more often, but for 1 to 2 people who are looking to save space on their counter, the Nespresso Pop Plus is the one to go with. And if you're someone someone who wants the best of both worlds, with a smooth mechanical opening and closing top and a large water reservoir, then I recommend going with an Nespresso Vertuo Plus. This is the machine that I personally have owned the longest, and even though I can't brew 18-ounce carafes of Nespresso coffee, I love the Nespresso Vertuo Plus. I think the design is great because it's a large machine, but it also allows you to save space on your counter. But overall, you really can't go wrong with any of these Nespresso Vertuo machines. They are all great, and even though some of them may be larger, they may have different functionality or features, they still brew the same amazing Nespresso Vertuo pods. And no matter what you choose, you can't go wrong. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in more product reviews and comparisons.